Good. That's good. So, Sister Olivia, you publicly said, so we're not spreading your business, that you were nearly $100,000 in debt. Where do you stand currently?
Well, I was a little in the 100, so I won't
100
say.
plus. You were 100 plus. Excuse me. I don't want to mess up your testimony.
So, the first step was thinking about what my current relationship with money was and where I wanted to be. And bills aren't going to stop. And I knew that I would have more bills. Now, whether I was going to go home ownership, those are bills. Whether you have car payments, those are bills. And I knew that bills were just going to continue to come, but I didn't want the current bills that I had. That was student loans, a little bit of credit card, not too much, but more so just around education and a car. So I have a financial advisor, sat down with her and just was, thinking about what I really wanted for myself. And I want home ownership and I want to be able to own different things. And my payments were so high. I was like, well, how am I going to do this and do these payments on top of there's going to be more payments. So I started the debt snowball method and looked at all of the loans that I had and just started attacking. And so here I am 7 years later and I'm debt free. Amen. And so.
Come on, City of Grace. God's no respecter of person.
And so it did take, it took a little sacrifice. I mean, there were times where I had 2 jobs. There were times where, friends might have been going out the country and I was like, you know what, I can't make this trip. Right. But now I'm in a position, if I want to go on 3 trips, I can go.
Talk about it.
Right.
So I think it's what you want for yourself. A lot of times people say, if you really want something to happen, you'll make it happen. So I made it happen. And one of the things that's coming to mind right now is biblical principles. And when I was younger, I mean, let's be real, you don't really think about that. And I didn't think about that at the time. And yes, I was raised in a household where my family did tithe, went to college, you kind of sometimes stray away from church. And then when I came back, it was a blessing to hear about money in the church. And I had some book recommendations as well. I brought a book, so The Richest Man in Babylon, and Elder Frank touched on it about how money works and how you're really supposed to attack money. So from tithing, from paying debt, from saving, it really talks about it all throughout the Bible, but this is a really good book. So I brought this for someone who really needs to know the principles of how to deal with money. So if you need to know more about that, see me after and you can have this book. And I only have one, so.
Awesome. Security, we may need to get her an escort out of here. Let me pose this question to the panel at large. What do you think is one of the most significant barriers to financial literacy and empowerment? And I want to get more specific, especially within the African American community.
A lack of knowledge. When it comes to finances, I think the Black community in the church as a whole is a lack of knowledge in how money works.
That's good.
I think there's a distrust also in our community as it relates to different programs or things that we can do. And to Elder Frank's point, if you don't understand it, then you're not going to be as apt to take advantage of some of those programs. Pastor, we talked about one of the books that was really instrumental in changing my mindset on money was The Millionaire Next Door. And the author talked a lot about folks that made tons of money and people that didn't make as much. There's an example of a janitor who died in 2018, I think, and he worked and never made much more than minimum wage, but he left an estate valued at more than $8 million. And this was a janitor. So it's not what we make, it's what we keep. We have some friends that made great money, and my wife said, I don't understand, that person's always broke. And she said, they make like $80,000 a year. I said, because they're spending $90,000 a year.
Come on.
So it's important for us to live beneath and within our means, and that gives us margin so that we can begin to invest and learn. But I think a lot of us are afraid because we just don't know.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I'd like to add. I was talking to Elder Frank earlier today, and I was talking about how I'm kicking and screaming and dragging people across the line of home ownership. And I said, I feel like when I walk into the room, I mean, you should know that I'm here to help you or whatever. And he was like, well, the problem is that a lot of people don't have the trust. You have to build the trust. You have to build the relationship. And that resonated with me because I felt like, they should trust me anyway. That's the reason why they come to my office. One of the things that I always try to start off with is that people should just, when I say start where they are, is everybody in here, I'm assuming, has some sort of shelter over their heads, whether they own their home or they rent their home. When you own your home, you're paying yourself. When you rent your home, you're paying someone else. So when I'm talking to somebody and they say, hey, why are you renting? Why don't you buy so that you can pay yourself? If you sat down for a moment and you thought about how long you've been in your place, because most renters who have a stable lifestyle have rented their place 5-10 years. If you took every rent payment that you've made and you calculated that over 5 or 10 years, how much money did you rob yourself of? That's the real question. And so if we can just start where we are, which is taking your rent and turning that into a mortgage and paying yourself first, then look at where you're going to be 5 years from now. Look where you would be 7 years from now. Like when she was getting herself out of debt, if she owned her home, I don't know if she owned her home or not, but if she had owned her home and she was paying herself, because your rent is going to be paid anyway, whether it's $700 or whatever. I know programs out there that will match your rent. So whatever you're paying for rent, that's what they're going to put your house payment at. So if you can pay your rent for $750 a month, why can't you pay your mortgage for $750 a month?
Talk to us, Vic. Talk to us.
It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, and I'm going to take his advice. I'm going to try to start building relationships and try to start building trust instead of just saying, here, this is on paper, this is black and white, and this is the way it should be, because not everything that's on paper translates to real life.
So here we go, real quick. So for a person whose rent, and this is just on average, has been $1,000 a month for the last 10 years, you have paid somebody else $120,000. Amen. Wow. Please speak up. Olivia.
To add to what the other panelists said, role models and exposure. So when my first job I had out of college, it was an organization where there was a big board presence there, and it was an all-women board. And these women were able to donate sometimes, $10,000 plus in a year, or buy an $1,000 ticket to an event because it was for charity and things of that nature. Even in the role I'm in now, in the end, it's majority white women who were able to do this. And even in the role I'm in now, around a lot of Caucasian people who are older than me, sometimes I spend my winters at my Florida house, or sometimes I'm half the year in Michigan. And I was just thinking, as a person that got out of college, how do y'all know how to do this? How are you doing this? Like, what people do you know? Who's talking to you about what? And money's such a taboo topic, nobody's talking about it. There are a lot of successful Black people in the community, and they may be talking about it to their circle, but where do we have, groups where we come together like this, where we can talk about these things, and what other people are doing, and they're sharing your secrets with you. And I just was like, well, and their kids were doing it, and then their kids were doing it. So I'm like, what aren't we getting that other groups of people may be getting over us? And I think that's why it's important to have things like this so we can talk about this. There may be somebody in this room, there's people on this panel that know things that I don't know, that they're sharing with you that you don't know. So talk to people, ask questions. I was talking to this man at work. I said, okay, you have a house in Michigan. How'd you get it? What are you doing? What do I need to be doing? What do my taxes need to be looking like? What are the deductions I need to be making? Because it seems sometimes like it can be a secret society. Well, I'm gonna need to be in the secret society.